12 masked rulers gather in a silent chamber. A single glowing message floats above them. The hybrid breathes. Across the stars, ancient fears awaken, forgotten bloodlines, forbidden powers, and one child born of a single night. Now hunted by empires, worshipped by ruins and carrying memories that could break reality itself. But she doesn't want war. She only wants to know why the stars whisper her name. And when they come to erase her, she rewrites the galaxy. Instead, if you're new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. In the cold sky of the outer edge, a small moon drifted like a forgotten pebble in the tide of stars. It had no name, no flags, no records. It was just there, silent, with wind that howled through broken rocks and caves that swallowed light. But deep inside one of those caves, under a layer of ice and stone, a fire glowed gently. Next to the fire sat a man, his clothes patched and worn, his beard full of frost. His name was Nael. Nael had once been a soldier, then a healer. Now he was something else, something quieter. He held a small bowl of soup, close to the fire. Beside him, wrapped in old cloth, lay a child with eyes too bright for the dark. The girl's name was never spoken aloud, not by Nael, not by anyone. She had no birth record, no citizen file, not even a whispered nickname among the local traders. Nael called her Little Light when they were alone, but even that was rare. She was different, and Nael knew it. From the first moment he saw her, her mother had arrived during a storm years ago. Her ship was damaged, her skin pale gold, her voice trembling. She said few words. She only asked for shelter and whispered one thing before she died. Protect her. Nael had buried the woman under the ice that night, her body wrapped in star silk, her face peaceful. He never learned her name. But the child had lived. As the years passed, the girl grew, faster than Nael expected. By the age of 3, she could speak 2 languages, neither of which Nael had taught her. By the age of 5, she could climb the icy cliffs without slipping once. By 7, she could touch metal and feel the memories inside. Sometimes, when she dreamed, the cave would shake. Sometimes, when she was sad, lights would flicker for miles. Nael kept her hidden. He built signal blockers into the cave walls. He told the few visitors who passed through that he lived alone. But he knew it would not last forever. Something so bright could never stay hidden in the dark. Far away on a ship made of glass and bone, a message floated inside a locked chamber. Around the chamber sat 12 figures wearing gold masks. None of their faces could be seen, none of their names spoken. They were the Starbound Council, the rulers of the 5 oldest empires. The message spun slowly, a red light pulsing at its center. One of the masked figures leaned forward. "It has awakened," she said. Her voice was thin like thread but sharp like a blade. "Do we know the source?" asked another. A pause, then a reply. "The hybrid, born of 2 lines. One human. On Valenai," gasps were heard. Curses. Silence. "We ended the bloodlines long ago," someone said. "This cannot be real." "It is real," the first voice answered. "And it is growing." One of them stood. His mask gleamed with firelight. "Then we must act, before it begins again." Across the stars, the order was sent. No name. No trial. Just a location. A moon with no name. A cave with light. And a child that should not exist. On the moon, Nael sat beside the girl as she drew shapes in the dirt. The shapes were strange. Curves and lines, spirals and stars. Nael watched her quietly. "What are you drawing?" he asked. The girl looked up. Her eyes were silver blue, glowing faintly even in the dim cave. "I don't know," she said. "They come to me when I close my eyes." "Do they speak?" Nael asked. "Not like voices," she said. "More like feelings, like music made of colors." Nael nodded. He didn't understand, but he had stopped trying to long ago. That night, she had a dream. In the dream, she floated in a place with no sky, just stars and whispers and shadows that watched, but never moved. One of the stars blinked and said, "You are not forgotten." When she woke, the cave was full of light. The fire had gone out, but her hands glowed. Nail stirred from sleep, eyes wide. "Little light," he whispered. "What happened?" The girl looked at him, tears on her cheeks. "They're coming," she said. "I can feel them." Outside, in orbit above the moon, 5 ships blinked, into view. They were quiet, dark, shaped like blades. They moved without sound, their hulls covered in symbols that pulsed like veins. Inside one ship, a commander watched the cave through a distant scanner. "Lock coordinates," she said. "No survivors." But as her hand moved to give the signal, her screen flashed white. Symbols broke. Alarms screamed. Inside the cave, the child was no longer just a child. She stood in the center of the floor, her arms raised, her eyes white with light. Nail tried to reach her. "Stop," he shouted. "You'll hurt yourself." But she did not hear him. Or if she did not answer. In orbit, the ships began to shake. Their engines died. One ship turned completely upside down without reason. Another vanished in a burst of mist. The commander gasped. "What is this?" she whispered. "What is she?" On the moon, the girl collapsed. The light faded. Nail ran to her side and held her close. "You're safe," he said. "You're safe now." But he was wrong. Far beyond them, on a world made of storms and stone, the council gathered again. "We have confirmed it," a voice said. "The hybrid is real, and she has awakened the code." "Then the old fear is true," said another. "She is not just a child. She is the echo." They all nodded. "Then we must erase her before the memory spreads." And in the cave, Nail sat in silence, rocking gently with the sleeping child in his arms. He looked at the flames, at the shapes drawn on the walls, at the stars above. He whispered one question to the dark. "How do you protect a child who was never allowed to exist?" But the stars gave no answer. Only a soft, cold wind that whispered through the cave and carried her, name where none dared speak it. The sun over the frozen moon had not yet risen when Nail carried the girl into the old shuttle. His hands shook as he wrapped her in warm cloth. Her skin no longer glowed, but it felt warm. Too warm. Her breathing was steady, but her eyes did not open. He had seen strange things in war, but this was different. This was ancient. This was something he did not understand. The shuttle had been buried for years under ice and stone, its systems nearly dead. Nail had once used it to hide from scanners. Now, he needed it to flee. He reconnected the fuel cells with bare fingers, using scrap wires and sheer hope. The engines coughed like tired animals, but they lit. He didn't look back as the cave disappeared behind the rising mist. He had no place to go. Only a direction, away. In orbit, 3 of the Empire's ships floated dead in space. Their crews were silent, frozen. Not from cold, but from shock. The commanders did not understand what they had witnessed. One captain had tried to send a message. The words never reached command. His screen had filled with strange symbols. Symbols that pulsed like veins, then turned black. Elsewhere, on a storm-choked planet hidden behind magnetic clouds, a different kind of ship hovered above the surface. It was sleek, silver, and soundless. Inside, a team of scientists stood around a glowing table. They were not Empire, not rebels, not pirates. They were watchers, forgotten by most, feared by few. They had found something in the ruins of the hollow moon, a sample left behind during a scan. It was blood. Not much. Just a few drops. Enough. The lead scientist, a tall woman with metal eyes named Tressa, studied the results in silence. The other watchers waited, their breath held. This isn't hybrid code, she said finally. This is something else. Oh, mistake? Someone asked. No, Tressa said. A memory. The words confused the others. She zoomed in on the data. The genetic strands glowed in patterns none had seen before. They pulsed with rhythm, like music written in cells, like language born in blood. It responds to light, Tressa whispered, and sound, and thought. It adapts faster than we can. Test. The DNA rewrites itself every time we run a scan. A young assistant stepped back from the screen. This isn't natural. No, Tressa said. It's designed. A silence fell over the room, the kind of silence that sits heavy like weight on your chest. By who? The assistant asked. Tressa did not answer. She closed the screen and turned off the lights. Far from them, Nail's shuttle broke through a storm above a trade planet called Milenis. He had hoped to land unnoticed, but nothing ever worked that way anymore. As the ship touched down in the dust, he saw a shadow waiting near the landing pad. A figure in a long coat, face hidden by a hood. Nail stepped out, holding the girl tight. The figure did not move. You're late, the voice said. It was deep and calm. We weren't supposed to come here, Nail replied. The figure stepped forward. It was a man, old and scarred, with a face that had seen too much. His name was Astron. She did something, Nail said. Up there, with the ships. I know, Astron said. We saw it. They all did. Then why are we here? Nail asked. Because there's no hiding anymore, Astron said. Only truth. They brought the girl into the back of a small building shaped like a tower fallen on its side. Inside, machines hummed softly. Astron laid her on a table, his hands gentle. Her name? He asked. I've never said it aloud, Nail replied. Then don't start now, Astron said. Names carry weight. Let her wake first. Astron touched a panel. Soft lights rose. Scanners moved over the girl's skin. Her heartbeat echoed through the room. Slow, strong, deep. She's changing, Astron said. Even now. Into what? Nail whispered. Astron did not answer. The scans began to show patterns. Colors moved across the screen. Patterns that shifted as if alive. They weren't just reading her blood, they were listening to it. This isn't just code, Astron said. It's memory. Her blood remembers things from before us. Before empires. You sound like a preacher, Nail muttered. No, Astron said. Preachers speak of gods. I'm speaking of the builders. Those who shaped thought into form, light into flesh. Nail looked at the girl. Her eyes moved. Under her lids, she was dreaming again. Can she control it? He asked. Not yet, Astron said. But soon, in a different part of the galaxy, deep under the ocean of a water world called Velen, another lab was breaking rules. They had stolen a drop of blood during a sweep of the hollow moon. Now, it floated in a chamber of glass, surrounded by light. Beams and harmonic fields, the blood pulsed. Increase pressure, one tech said. It's adapting, said another. It's not resisting, it's reading us. What do you mean, reading us? The lead scientist asked. I mean, it knows what we're doing. And it's responding. Impossible. Look at the readings, the tech snapped. The data changed again. The blood now showed structures used in pre-collapse engines. Patterns of harmonic frequency used to bend gravity. This isn't evolution, the lead scientist said. This is design. And somewhere deep below, in the dark, water tunnels, a single worker left his post. He walked out of the lab into the ocean. He didn't scream, didn't resist. He simply walked. Back on Milenis, the girl finally opened her eyes. She sat up slowly, looking around. Nail stood beside her, his face filled with relief. You're safe, he whispered. The girl looked at him. No, she said softly. We're being watched. Astron stepped closer. By who? Not who, the girl replied. By what? At that moment, a light on the panel blinked. A signal short and sharp. Astron read the code. They found us, he said. How? Nail asked. We blocked the signals. Astrid looked at the girl. We didn't send anything. The girl stood. Her hands were steady, her voice calm. My blood remembers, she said. And they remember me. Nail stared at her. What are you? The girl turned toward the door, where the light from the rising twin suns began to shine. Through. Not a weapon, she said, not a god. Then what? She looked back at them. Her eyes were not glowing now. They were full of something deeper. Not power, not fear. Just truth. A mirror, she said, of everything they tried to forget. And with that, she stepped into the light. The shuttle broke through the clouds of a forgotten world, a world once marked on ancient maps but now erased from every system. It had no known name, just a whisper among old traders, the Twilight Planet. Storms moved slowly here, like giants breathing. The skies glowed orange and green, and the winds carried sounds that didn't belong to air. Some said this world was cursed, others said it was waiting. Solari stood at the edge of the shuttle's window, her face quiet, eyes focused on the shifting clouds below. Beside her, Astrid adjusted the controls. Nail sat behind them, arms crossed, his face pale and tired. Why, here? Nail asked. What are we walking into? Astrid didn't look up. Answers. And danger? Always, Astrid said. They landed near a ridge shaped like the curve of a giant spine. Beyond it lay a valley filled with stone pillars, each taller than ships, each carved with symbols too old to translate. Time had not touched these stones. Dust could not stay on them. They pulsed faintly, like hearts sleeping in the earth. Solari stepped onto the soil. Her foot touched the ground and the air around her shimmered. She turned her head slowly, as if listening. They remember me, she whispered. Who? Nail asked, stepping beside her. Not who, Solari said. What? They moved through the ruins, passing silent altars and broken arches. A strange calm filled the place. No birds, no creatures, just echoes. Soft, slow echoes of something ancient. At the center of the valley stood a cracked mirror tower. It reflected no sky, only stars that had long since died. Solari walked to it without hesitation. Astrid followed, notebook in hand, recording symbols as he walked. This place was sacred once, he said, before the empires, before the wars. Built by the first walkers, Solari said. Those who shaped thought into form. Astrid paused. How do you know that? Solari looked at him, eyes glowing with memory. I've been here before. Not as me, but as someone else. They reached the base of the tower. A large door stood half buried in roots. Solari touched the center, and the roots pulled back. The door opened with a sound like deep breath. Inside was not darkness, but light. Warm, gold, humming with peace. They stepped into a wide chamber lined with walls that curved like waves. Strange markings moved across the surfaces, not carved but flowing like water. In the center stood a circle of mirrors, each one facing inward. Solari walked into the center. The mirrors began to glow. One by one they showed reflections, but not of the present. In the first mirror, she saw a woman floating in a sea of stars, her body wrapped in light. In the second, a child stood on a mountain, her voice bending the clouds. In the third, a war raged around a single girl whose tears stopped an army. Solari's hands trembled. These are memories, she said, but not mine alone. Nail stepped back. What is this place? A memory well, Astrid answered. The builders didn't write history. They grew it. Solari placed her hand on the final mirror. It went dark, then lit again. A face appeared. It was hers, but not as she was now. Older, wiser. Her voice came from the glass. You are not the first, the voice said, but you may be the last. Solari fell to her knees. Tears filled her eyes. Why me? She whispered. Why always me? The mirror didn't answer, only showed stars bending around her image. The voice faded. The chamber grew quiet again. Astran crouched beside her. What did it mean? Solari looked at him. The seed. It's not a story. It's a cycle. I'm part of it, maybe the last. Nail stepped forward. What seed? The one they buried, Solari said. When the empires rose, they erased the truth. They feared what could not be controlled. Hybrids, bridges, the ones who carried both fire and light. Astran stood, notebook shaking in his hand. They didn't fear your power. They feared your meaning. Outside, thunder rumbled. Not from clouds. From ships. The Empire had followed them. The sky turned black with metal. Dozens of ships circled above the ruins. No messages. No warnings. Nail grabbed Solari's arm. We have to run, but Solari stood still. They don't want to talk, she said. They came to end the cycle. Astran checked the scanner. They've locked onto us. We have minutes. Solari stepped outside the tower. She raised her hand. The mirrors behind her reflected her form. Not one, but many. The past, the now, the almost. From the largest ship, a beam of energy shot down, meant to erase everything. But it stopped midair. Froze. Solari's eyes glowed silver. Her feet lifted inches from the ground. The air thickened. The ships began to shake. Lights flickered. Engines groaned. Astran stared at the scanner. She's rewriting the energy grid. No, she's erasing the attack itself. Nail fell to his knees. How is this possible? Because this place remembers, Solari said. And so do I. The ruins lit up, one by one. Pillars hummed, symbols flared. The sky cracked with blue light. And then, nothing. The ships retreated, not because they lost, but because they understood. They had no power here. Solari lowered her hand. The mirrors went dark. She looked at Nail and Astran. Her voice was soft. Steady. This is where the war ends, she said. But the truth is, just beginning. They left the tower behind. As they walked through the valley, the stones began to glow. Not for them, but for the ones still to come. The galaxy held its breath. Above the quiet sky of the twilight planet, the Empire's fleet hovered like a crown of metal and fear. No messages came. No warnings. They had seen what Solari could do, and still they came. Thousands of ships, armored and armed, surrounding the ruins like vultures circling the last heartbeat of something ancient. Solari stood at the highest point of the valley, the wind lifting her long cloak behind her. Her eyes were calm, but inside her chest something stirred. Not anger, not fear, something older, something ready. Behind her, Nael and Astran watched in silence. They both knew that this was not a battle. It was something else. A moment the stars would never forget. You don't have to do this, Nael said, his voice low. Solari turned slightly, her face lit by the ruins. I was born from silence, she said. But I cannot end in fear. Astran tapped into the ship's long-range scanner. The fleet had activated weapons, energy pulses, orbital beams, all locked onto one target, her. They're not waiting, Astran whispered. Solari took one step forward. The stones around her began to hum. The ground under her feet warmed, pulsing with memory. She raised one hand, not to attack, but to speak. Not with words, but with presence. On every Empire ship, screens cracked, lights flickered, soldiers froze mid-movement. Then they heard it, not through sound, but through thought. A voice, soft as breath, heavy as time. You came to end me, but I am not your enemy. Admirals panicked. Orders clashed. Someone yelled, to fire. Someone else whispered to wait. But the ships did not respond. Their systems stalled. Engines dimmed. Weapons powered down. Above it all, in the Empire's command ship, High General Servan slammed his fist onto the control desk. What is she? He demanded. No one answered. Because no one knew. Solari lifted her other hand. The air bent around, her not with power, but with memory. Flashes of a time long gone appeared in the sky above her. Not war, not fire, but light. People of many shapes and colors working side by side, creating, building, healing. This is what we were. Her voice echoed. Before the fear, before the blood. The fleet began to retreat, not from weakness, but from realization. She was not there to destroy them. She was there to remind them. And that truth was heavier than any weapon. On the surface, Niall fell to his knees. Tears ran down his face. Not from sadness, but from clarity. All his life he had tried to protect her from the galaxy. But now he understood. The galaxy had needed her more than she had ever needed it. Astron closed his notebook. There was nothing, left to write, and still Solari stood. Then the change began. Her glow faded. The light in her eyes softened. The ground no longer responded to her footsteps. Her power was not gone, but it was leaving. Nail rushed forward. What's happening? Solari turned to him. It's time, she said. I was not meant to stay like this forever. You're fading, Astron said. Why? Because the silence has been broken, she whispered, and the stars are listening again. She stepped away from the ruins. The mirror tower behind her cracked but did not fall. The symbols stopped glowing. The wind grew quiet. She walked toward the shuttle not as a being of light but as a girl, simple, real, human. Where will you go? Nail asked. Somewhere smaller, she said. Somewhere true. Astron nodded. Then we will follow. Weeks passed. The Empire Council dissolved. Leaders disappeared. Old statues were pulled down, and ruins became places of learning instead, of fear. The story of Solari spread, not as a weapon, not as a queen, but as a reminder. Children in distant systems lit candles and whispered her name. Old soldiers laid down their guns and looked at the stars with softer eyes. No one knew where Solari had gone. Some believed she became the wind. Others believed she still walked among them in quiet places, speaking to those who listened. Nail and Astron built a school on a hill where the mirror tower once stood. No gates, no ranks, just stories, and questions, and hope. On the 100th day of peace, people from across the stars gathered under the twin suns. No flags, no titles, only memories. Nail stood before the crowd. His voice was tired but steady. She did not rule us. She did not lead us. She reminded us of who we were before we forgot, of what we can become when we remember. He pointed to the sky. She did not save the galaxy. She gave it a chance to save itself. After the speech, he sat beneath the flowering tree Solari had brought to life before her power faded. The petals glowed faintly in the dusk. A child walked up, her eyes wide, full of wonder. Was she real? The girl asked. Nail smiled. She was real enough to change everything. The girl looked up at the stars. They twinkled in silence. But for the first time in many lifetimes, that silence was not empty. It was full. Full of story. Full of memory. Full of a name not spoken aloud, but carried in the wind, in the stones, in the hearts of those who had seen her. Solari. Not a queen, not a weapon. Just a girl who refused to become what they feared and instead became what they forgot. Hope. And in that hope, the stars no longer ruled. They listened, and the galaxy began again.